What is your project manager really up to? Is there a difference between a good project manager and a great project manager? What is happening with that black hole that is a project in your business? Here to shed some light on the subject, Werner Meyer and Hannes van der Berg. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on scottcundill.com.
Thank you, Scott.
Well, let's begin. So, certifications aren't everything. What is the difference between a project manager that really gets their job and a project manager that's just kind of running around like a headless chicken? How do you, as a business owner, how do you tell the difference between a good or average project manager and a great project manager?
So, Scott, perhaps if I can answer that question, I think through the work that we do with various companies, we often see that there is quite a big difference between project managers who are really successful and those project managers that are really mediocre or just the average project managers. And those guys who are more successful, if you just had to take a rule of thumb, they tend to get all the projects. So business owners would tend to go to, let's say, Peter, and they'll say, if you really want to get this project done, let's go to Peter because he can get stuff done. So I think that is often a leading indicator in organizations without going into any of the details of the normal measures like business success, project success, etc. That is usually the leading indicators. People want to give projects to a person because that person has a reputation of delivery.
So that's all well and good, but where's the problem within the organization then? Because are you finding then that a whole bunch of projects get to a smaller group of people and then that puts too much pressure on them? I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is great. There's an easy measure of project success because the great project managers get all the work. Something doesn't sound right about that though.
No, I agree with you. It doesn't sound right, but what we do tend to find in organizations is that those important and more projects go to those project managers. But if we had to drill down to the next level, if you now have to go and say, okay, Peter gets all the projects, what is it about Peter that makes Peter get all those projects? And I think the experiences that we've had is that one of the big differentiators in project managers for us is that, or what we've seen, is that they tend to be the kind of individuals who gets along with the team, people who can organize the team, who can get work done, who can delegate without much effort. So they don't have to have particularly formal structures, formal processes, formal methods, but there's a trust relationship between the project manager and the team members. And through that, the team members tend to perform better. And these project managers then tend to be able to deliver more successfully. And I'll perhaps ask Hannes to also add on to that, because I think he's had quite different experiences in different organizations as well.
I think, Scott, for me, what makes successful project managers are those project managers that have a deep understanding of the processes. I mean, project management is process related. And if you have a deep understanding of processes, you know what to apply when. Sometimes you get the guys that are just certified and they also think they've got an understanding of the processes, but they just follow a tick box approach. So they don't know what to apply when. And I think, you know, sometimes then they just become administrators of projects and not really managing projects. And that is the important thing for a project manager, because no one focuses more on the project than the project manager. You know, even if it needs to add to the business value at the end of the day, and the sponsor or the business owner wants to get that value out of it. But they also have operational issues that they have to focus on, whereas the project manager can focus just on the project. So for me, that's one of the big differences, is someone that's got a deep understanding, knows how to scale it, knows when to apply it, compared to someone that thinks they've got an understanding, and then they just administer the project as they continue through the life cycle.
Absolutely. So you're saying there's a difference between a project administrator versus a project manager. And that goes back to something, Werner, you said just now, which is intriguing. are you saying that there is a direct correlation to the performance of a team in their relationship with the project manager? Does the project manager really have that much insight and effect on a team's performance?
Yes, I would say so. I think just working in various organizations over many years and keeping in contact with some of the project managers, there's definitely that relationship, because I think what we have to realize, and that's actually something that is quite interesting to us at the moment, is we know that over the next few years, perhaps in the past year and then over the next few years, the nature of work is going to change and has changed. So the way people engage with other people and the way work gets done is actually changing. And what we find is that specifically in projects, they are mostly delivered by people. It's not a production line where you can employ robots to assemble cars. So as soon as you start to deal with people, you are dealing with individuals who may be different each day of the week, because they have emotions, they have personal circumstances and so on. And that relationship between the project manager and the individual is to get the individual to perform certain activities and certain tasks in spite of all the other noise in that person's life. And I think that relationship, what we've seen is, if there's a good trust relationship, the individual would feel comfortable in the organization, they will feel confident, they will feel that there's support from the project manager. And that's an important aspect. I don't think it's the only aspect, but it is a very important aspect in getting people to deliver work successfully.
Well, I think that's actually quite profound, because, and Hannes, I'd like you to elaborate on this, because if you've got a great project manager who's getting the best out of your team and getting a team more efficient, then Hannes, how does this equate financially? I mean, we're talking about potential huge savings in an organization.
No, definitely. I fully agree with what Werner said. You know, we more often see now that the project team members or shared resources, they're not 100% allocated to a project. So they also have other functional bosses, and the project manager needs to actually negotiate some of their time. And you know, depending on where you lie in the organization, they will decide who they actually going to produce for or deliver for. So I think, you know, if you have a project manager that can actually mobilize these shared resources, then it will definitely bring in efficiencies in the organization, because you don't have to duplicate those functions across different departments. But it's once again, it goes back to what Werner said in terms of the soft skills. You know, you need to know how to motivate your project team, but you also need to know how to negotiate for additional times from their functional heads.
Gee, this is interesting. So now, how do you guys then at Project Link handle the changes that are, well, they're not coming anymore, they're actually here in terms of kind of new normal, remote working? So how do you guys, who are absolutely on the pulse of what's happening in the project management industry, how are you guys going to handle your clients and work with your clients to help them shift in terms of project management in the new tomorrow?
If I can perhaps respond to that, Scott, you know, and I have to make the link here to certifications versus competency. And our experience has been that, especially over the past, let's say 2 decades or so, there has been a big drive by many international project management bodies to get people certified. And certifications have become really important to people. And often when you go on LinkedIn and you look at people's profiles, they have a string of certifications, you know, project management certifications, all sorts of things. And what we also see is that there are people who are, let's call them certification hunters. They try to get each and every certification because I think there's a perception that certification equals competency. And the experience that we've had with that is that's not always the case. And to substantiate that, we have developed a competency development framework that we use in our organization. And linked to that is a process where we test people and we also look at their performance in the organization and together with that career path development. And our experience has been through the testing, through the interviews we've had, that if you have a specific certification, that doesn't mean you are going to be well accepted by the team or that you're going to perform well in the organization. What one should rather look at, and that is the approach that we have, is to look at competency as a complete set of skills. So it's not only the certification, it links to the experience, it links to the personality types, it links to the tool sets that you are familiar with and so on. So that doesn't mean certifications are not important, because they often do create common language. So when you talk to your team and you talk about a WBS or a scope of work, everybody understands exactly what you mean by that. But that is only one of the important aspects that we have to look at. It's bringing in all those other aspects, and in the approach that we apply with clients and with the projects where we engage, we look at competency, in terms of skills, experience, qualifications, etc. And we believe that if you bring all of that together, it's only then that you have the possibility of creating a successful project manager and hence project success.
Gee, that was really, really interesting. And especially, I mean, I think to kind of sum up, it comes down to the notion of having a competent project administrator versus a highly skilled project manager. And there's a very, very specific difference, because management is about taking that team to the new level. And obviously you guys at Project Link are on the cusp of that and have developed some really interesting tools on how you can measure the difference and make sure that your clients get the best from project management. Hannes, final question. Where are you guys taking Project Link in the next couple of years?
Well, I think, we've been quite successful the last couple of years. We've been specializing in some specific industries, engineering, mining, construction type of environment. But, and there, the type of project management that you do there is very much hands-on. So they haven't necessarily fully embraced the remote working, and they've integrated a lot of sensors in there. So they're also embracing the fourth industrial revolution with technology. But because you're managing people at the end of the day, and that's project management is also one of those functions, especially project manager, that won't be easily replaceable with technology, with robots, as Werner has mentioned. So I think, one of the skill sets that the project managers will have going into the future, and something that we will focus on from Project Link side, especially if we enter some new industries and new sectors in the market for the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to embrace the working remotely and providing those skills and developing those competencies for the project managers going forward. It opens up the whole world. You can actually sit wherever you are, and you can mobilize the people in all different countries, geographical locations, etc. So I think for us, it's taking on the world, bringing in those competencies as required, as Werner mentioned, but enhancing that to work in new sectors.
Taking on the world. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And you can get hold of Project Link at www.projectlink.co.za. Once again, Werner Meyer and Hannes van den Berg, thank you so much for joining me on scottcundill.com.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.